health crisis experienced by young people, particularly girls in the United States, has reached a crisis level. This generation of girls experiences stress, anxiety, loneliness, and depression at levels never seen before in our history. We can blame school shootings, we can blame climate change, we can blame the pandemic, social media, bullying, the economy, body shaming, the political unrest we are seeing today. The list is endless. But blaming someone or something will not fix this. Frankly, it will take a very long time for all these things to be corrected, if they are ever corrected. I suggest we take a different approach. Rather than waste time waiting for change or hoping for a miracle, we can instead help save this generation of girls by showing them how to build self-esteem and increase their resilience to anything that comes their way. We must do this, and we must start today. This is the only approach that will assure we can save this generation.
Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein is a positive psychologist, best-selling author, and award-winning selfie filmmaker specializing in coming-of-age issues for girls and women. She's been called a visionary who combines positive psychology with media creation to produce films and books that are utterly unique. She's a licensed psychologist in private practice in New Jersey and Massachusetts, holding a doctorate in education from Boston University. Her early work focused on moving away from the traditional disease model of therapy, emphasizing patient strengths and talents instead. During those years, she authored The Enchanted Self, a positive therapy, advocating positive psychology even before it had a formal title. The Enchanted Self website, established in the early years of her practice, today still offers a wealth of inspiring stories, exercises, and resources for women's potential and happiness.
When I first went into practice to be a psychologist, I was as excited as most people are. I found a career. I loved working with people and helping them. I thought it was going to be a kind of paradise, but it wasn't. What I saw pretty soon as I started to do my therapeutic work is that most of the patients, in fact, all of the patients that came to see me in those days, came with, of course, a lot of problems. Of course, I understood that's why they would come. But I started to realize that they expected with therapy to fix their problems. However, they also, I felt, needed something else that wasn't being done at all. And to double check myself, I asked my husband, who was also is a practicing clinical psychologist and a few years ahead of me in his training. And I asked lots of friends, and we belong to an association for psychologists. I started checking around, and I discovered that all of these clinicians were, of course, totally focused on helping their clients with their problems and really never thought about asking them about their talents or their potential or what was right with them. In fact, some of them looked at me like I was weird. Well, I want to tell you, I was not weird. I was actually way ahead of a curve that was happening in the United States. The curve was that there were psychologists, social workers, psychiatrists here and there around the country who knew that our forms of therapy, good as they were not complete. They did not help the whole person, because the whole person is not only his or her problems, The whole person is a person with talents and strengths and untapped potential, and often yearning to tap into those parts of him or herself. And so I became 2 or 3 years ahead of the crowd, one of the first psychologists to help clients focus on their talents, strengths, and potential. This did not mean that I stopped working with their problems. What it meant is 2 things. One is, in the initial interview, I would ask the right questions that help people bring to the surface some of their lost talents and interests and some yearnings around potentials. Secondly, I would always be on the lookout for what they talked about that already showed me they were using potential traits that could be exaggerated and even work better for them, or interests or talents. And I could reinforce it by congratulating them and talking about these interests and talents and potential. It all worked so beautifully. It led me to actually put on my cap as a psychologist doing research. I, of course, was in private practice with my husband. Neither of us were particularly connected to a university, although both of us taught at one or both of the local colleges around here. So I wasn't really part of the gang that at certain universities were developing programs where they were looking at the possibilities of a new group of psychologists focusing on positive psychology. However, I was sitting in my office in Long Branch, New Jersey, and I was developing a real desire to do research on positive psychology. And with my husband's help at times, and believe it or not, my father, who was extremely helpful because he was an educator and a superintendent of schools, and he had often been involved in research of one type or another, we came up with a group of questions to ask women. And I'm saying women, and you may be wondering why women. Hey, men have potential too. Yes, I picked women because there was much less research done on women than on men. That was one reason. The second reason is that I knew, just by being a woman, just by watching news and growing and living, that men for centuries, perhaps forever once they walked out of the cave, were often dominating over potential situations. They were getting more land when their parents died. They were in control of all sorts of things, from horrible things like slavery to who was going to be in the cabinet of a country as far as helping the king. And if there was a queen, there was going to be plenty of men telling her what to do. So I felt that the more important research should focus on women. Now, I couldn't use the women in my practice because they were there, yes, for what was on their minds, problems, issues, and I had no right to slant that by trying to fit them into a project. So I looked for women between the ages of 20s through about 80 to answer my questions. And I developed, as I said, the group of questions. What was it like to grow up in your family? Who got more of the opportunities, if that was the case? What have you yearned for now that you're a grown up? What talents or what hobbies or what interests? Do you have some things you're doing that you're proud of that you wish you could do more with? all of these types of questions. And I took my little dictating machine and I set out to interview these women, one by one, always alone. The interview took about an hour. What I found was disturbing, consistent with some of my thoughts, and very interesting. What was disturbing is almost all the women felt that the men, the boys and the men and their families had more opportunities than they were afforded. What I also found is that there was a sense in the family life that secrets sometimes existed, opportunities were sometimes closed doors to be kept as a secret for the person that was supposed to have a chance with it. And lifelong hobbies were not easy to come by. For example, something like taking piano lessons just for the sake of piano lessons was often impossible, oftentimes because they cost too much, but sometimes just because the parents were insensitive to the longings and the interests that their own children had. So after I finished interviewing about 20 women of all these different ages, I came to several conclusions. One was that these women loved talking to me about their hobbies and interests, and even the lost potential they would love to develop. They even enjoyed sharing with me things like the garden that they developed, or the ways that they liked to dance alone in the living room when they got home from work. They all had secret lives, so to speak, that just hadn't been really encouraged in civilization as we know it. So one day I was at the beach in my car, we live near the ocean, and I was thinking, and this term just kept running through my head, the enchanted self, the enchanted self, the enchanted self. And I was thinking, yes, all these women I interviewed, they were enchanted. They had a bit of magic that they didn't even know what to do with. And it wasn't from standard going to public school or high school or whatever. It wasn't about getting a 4-year degree in a college. It was magical in that a lot of this stuff could hardly be put into words. It had feelings behind it and opportunities that they longed for. And it just felt suddenly sort of like a fairy godmother. If they could just be tapped on the head, then this magical part of themselves would open. And from that point on, I knew that not only was I one of the first therapists across the country and probably the world to really develop positive psychology as a working technique within my practice, but that I was going to keep developing it and keep developing more so that women around the world could experience that enchantment of the magic of finding more of yourself and enjoying it. And so within a couple of years, a rough draft of a book, The Enchanted Self, a Positive Therapy, emerged. Guess who wrote it? Me. And it was quite an adventure because getting a publisher, a good publisher, when you're not working for a university or college, it's a whole different ball of wax. I was very fortunate. I went to the right convention, and by accident, maybe a little bit of magic, because I kind of felt the day that this happened that I'm going to tell you, I felt like I was being pushed forward. I almost fell on a table in one of these large rooms where salesmen and saleswomen come to sell books and pretty items and all sorts of things at conventions. And I almost fell onto the table where there was a woman who worked for a publishing house, and she was looking for interesting, creative books. So this woman became my editor. I was given a contract. She helped me organize the chapters, and the Enchanted Self, a positive therapy, was eventually published. Took a little time. It always does. The books at one point were in China somewhere, waiting in a ship big enough. It had to be filled with other people's books before it could cross the ocean. Things like that. But the books finally arrived, and we're now back still in the late 90s, and it wasn't a world of the magic of technology we now have, print on demand and so on. It was a different time. Once the book was published, I looked for ways to getting it to people around the world. And I used radio, I used a newsletter, I used speaking engagements, I used going to bookstores, which were still around a lot more than today. I also gave talks, and I tried as hard as possible to get my message across about the ways that you can enhance yourself with your own talents and capacities and yearnings. If you better understand that we have been denied access to our own opportunities, and that there are ways to recognize them and make them yours. So for the next few years, of course, along with quite a big practice at that point, I spent my time teaching others about their enchanted selves.
In the mid-2000s, Dr. Holstein pioneered a new form of filmmaking she called selfie films, allowing people to use smartphones for filmmaking and promoting inclusivity in storytelling. Young girls filmed themselves on their smartphones talking about issues that impacted them directly. This brought a level of realism not seen in filmmaking at the time. These groundbreaking films made a powerful impact on audiences worldwide. Her films have placed or been awarded hundreds of times. Due to this success, she recently appeared on the front cover of a special issue of Filmmaker magazine. Dr. Holstein also initiated the Selfie Project to give young people a voice through podcasts, addressing various issues and fostering real change. Later, during the pandemic, she adapted scripts into Zoom dramas to overcome isolation, addressing relationship conflicts and difficulties. Always thinking about how to give people a voice, one of her films, The Selfie Project, is a good example of her continued outreach. This film, a documentary, demonstrates how youngsters can share their feelings, attitudes, concerns, and hopes for solutions, utilizing two important methods. They can produce their own selfie films, where they share what is on their mind. Then in roundtable fashion with youngsters and experts, they can share potential solutions to problems.
It's around the turn of the century, and I am busy helping people around the world look for and experience their enchanted self. I'm getting messages and letters from women in Africa and Europe and psychiatrists in Germany and all sorts of people around the world acknowledging that indeed we needed a correction in how we help people in terms of their mental health. We needed to build in what then became positive psychology. And of course, that's what my work was and is, focusing on the beautiful potential that we all have. During this time, I also began to think about writing some books. I felt that the material I could share could help people out of the wilderness of slight despair that can hit us, and help if I put in some form of either a workbook page or otherwise the characters in the books themselves would be edging on the reader to do more with their lives and their destiny, let's put it that way. One of the first books that I wrote was Delight. Delight was designed for women. It was designed so that you could get to know me better while I gave you opportunities at the end of each little chapter to get to know yourself better. It was somewhat of a spiritual journey. In my case, since I was learning more about Judaism, I decided to base my stories on insights I had as I had an opportunity to go to a religious wedding. I had an opportunity to see some of the beautiful things that happen in terms of study and understanding the Bible more clearly. Many of the things that I absorbed and understood are very similar in all major religions. When you decide to write a book, it has to have the precision and the clarity of the author. So for me, the clarity was through the experiences I had had in Judaism. The exercises at the end of each chapter were for you to experience your either religion or just your spiritual journey. So that was one of the things that took up a lot of my time. After that, I began to think about how could I help girls and teenagers with many of the difficult traumas that coming of age kind of forces on all of us. That led me to thinking about a diary form of book. In this diary form of book, a girl would become the main character. And as she kept her diary, there would be opportunities at the bottom of each page for the reader, probably a girl somewhere between 10 and 17, to also mention and keep a diary of sorts of what she was going through or how she reacted to the girl. The book was, for me, quite easy to write because so many thoughts came through my head about coming of age and how difficult it was for me, for my mother, for my father, for almost everyone I've ever met. It is a difficult time. There came a day when I felt it was time to write some books for girls. I wanted these books to have opportunities for them to discover more about themselves and get through the coming of age years, which are difficult and serious for all of us. The first book I wrote was The Truth. I'm a girl, I'm smart, and I know everything. I published it myself. It really did great. I sold thousands of copies. I have almost 100 remarks on the Amazon page that still exists from girls and their parents and teachers. It was a win. That led to the publishing of two books. One's called The Truth, Diary of a Gutsy Tween, and the other is called Secrets, Diary of a Gutsy Teen. They also represent a diary of a girl through these coming of age years, and they take you through, as you read it, many of the slight traumas and also happy times that we all have gone through, like having a crush, like maybe the family moving, like having to register and go to a new school, having a best friend or losing a best friend, feeling alone, feeling misunderstood, having parents that may fight or parents that ignore you, wanting a pet and the parents don't agree, having a noisy, difficult younger brother or sister, all sorts of adventures that really happen in one way or another to most of us. These books were picked up by a legitimate publisher. What happened was I was continuously writing, and there were also books for adults, such as Delight and Around Every Corner, Romance and Mystery. I couldn't stop. My mind just kept engaging in plots and interesting writing material from girlhood to senior citizens, mostly focusing on material that women would love and perhaps gravitate to more than men. And that's okay, because as I've explained earlier, there were many, many, and still are many reasons to produce material that can dominate a little bit on some of women's issues. So here I go, and I'm still moving along. I create a play called The Locket, which is about the same girl that's in The Truth and Secrets, but now from a different angle. She becomes an expert and is able to give her adult self advice. Of course, it's a play and it's imaginary, and there's a fairy godmother who helps out. And it's great fun, and women loved it and still love it. So on we go. It came to me that I should make a film about this girl and her coming of age issues. I found a wonderful young lady who could play the girl, and we made a film during the summer. Unfortunately and shockingly, I discovered that the film was kind of flat. Even though the actress was fabulous and did her utmost to make the girl alive, something was missing. And it turned the fellow that was going to edit this film, he actually had the breakthrough miracle thought. He said, instead of this young lady just memorizing scenes, let her have a full power. Let her do these scenes on her own without this one person crew watching and filming. Let her film on her iPhone. Let her decide what she was going to wear as a dress or an outfit. Let her do her own makeup. Let her pick the room in the house or the yard where she wanted the next scene to be filmed. Just let her do it. Kids are amazing. And that's what happened. She was quite surprised and excited and took a week or so to do the scenes that are in this film. What we got when we looked through her material was absolutely amazing. We had a film here that touched the heart and the soul and the mind of coming of age issues. Some of it made you want to cry a little bit, and some of it made you want to laugh. And it was so real, we could feel it in our own bones and our own memories. That's when selfie filmmaking was born.
in love. I didn't think I would fall in love until I was much older, maybe 15 or 16, but, not today. I was sitting in class reading, and all of a sudden the door opened, and in walked this new kid. And as soon as I saw him, I knew. I felt excited, like I suddenly had a secret, and our eyes locked. I read that in a book. It's true. As I looked into his eyes, I felt like we've known each other forever. Looking at him made me feel all fluttery inside. I wanted him to sit near me so badly, but he sat in the row in front of me, and his name is Paul. My best friend Angela sits behind him. I hope she doesn't fall in love with him too, because he's mine. They're fighting again. I hate it when Dad puts Mom down. There he goes, calling her stupid again. Now we'll never get to the beach today. I hate these fights. My parents fight all the time. At night it's the worst. I try not to listen, but I can't sleep. My ears are like elephant ears. I hear every word. They shouldn't have stupid fights. Nothing ever gets solved. No one feels better after being yelled at or put down. I know that. I should be able to fall asleep and have sweet dreams, but I could teach my mom and dad so much if only they would just listen to me. Today's my birthday. My grandparents came over and everyone sang happy birthday. My grandmother wanted to know if Aunt Grace had gotten me anything for my birthday. I raced upstairs and there it was, the unopened package. So I ripped it open and there it was, a locket in the shape of a heart. And the front is engraved with flowers. See? It opens, and there's room for 2 pictures. Grace put a picture of me on one side and the other's blank. I love it. I put the locket on and I raced downstairs, and I heard my grandmother say to my dad, "So Charles, you might get this new job. Sounds like a good promotion. I guess you'll move and we'll be a couple miles closer to you. That's good." I was shocked. Dad hadn't said a thing. My heart was pounding, and I just stood hidden at the top of the stairs, and then Mom said, "Shh, we haven't said a word to the kids yet." I was in shock and couldn't admit that I had heard what they said. I had to pretend like everything was normal, but it wasn't. My life might be changing forever, and no one even bothered to tell me. When I got downstairs, Grandmother said, "Oh, that's a lovely locket. Oh, and how sweet it opens. I wonder whose picture you'll put inside, maybe her brother." I could have screamed. My life was ruined, and no one my age wants to move. I have my best friend, and I'm in love with Paul. And all Grandma could think about was whether I might put my kid's brother's picture in my locket. Who wouldn't do that? If I could have it my way, I'd put a picture of Paul in it since he's the boy I love, but that's impossible. He probably doesn't even know I'm in love with him anyway. Too bad Aunt Grace lives so far away. She's nothing like my mother. She listens to me. My mom always seems to be somewhere else. When I ask questions, she's either too busy or cooking or the phone rings. Hard to believe they're sisters. Anyway, Aunt Grace would understand me falling in love. I can't move. Not now. I have a problem. I want to know about growing up. I want to ask my mother questions like, when will I need a bra and when will I get my period, but I can't. Whenever I try, she just looks away and starts to fidget with her fingers. And then she'll remember that she has to cook supper or do the laundry, and I never really get my questions answered. Doesn't she know that I'm confused? How am I supposed to be ready to get older if she can't even tell me what to expect? Mrs. Allen tells Angela everything she needs to know. Sometimes I wish I was Mrs. Allen's daughter. Angela's lucky, and that's the truth. I'm a little lucky. At least I get some of my questions answered secondhand. I love Nancy Drew mystery books. My mom gave me all of her books from when she was a little girl. Nancy is the best detective. And she's made me realize that I'm so smart. Most of the time, I solve the mystery way before the end of the book, but I still like to see how Nancy figures them out. I like being smart and clever, just like Nancy. I'd like to have a life just like Nancy Drew when I'm 17. Being smart and pretty are very important to me. Smart people solve mysteries and add numbers and can tell when people are lying, and that's me. Earlier today it was raining, so I got out my old fairy tale books. I used to read them all the time, but now I only do like once in a while. I wondered what it was really like to be Sleeping Beauty. What it would be like to be asleep for so long and then wake up to a prince kissing you. If I were asleep like that, would Paul come along and kiss me to wake me up? Would he scoop me up on his horse and carry me off into a forest and he'd love me forever? What if he never came, though? Could I wake myself up? I sure hope so. Today my mother told me not to expect to marry Paul. It just makes me so mad because, he's the person I love. I don't think she understands that. Every time I look at him, I know how I feel. He's the smartest boy in the room, and I can't imagine growing up and not being with him. I'd rather die. I can see ourselves married, and we'll have a dairy farm and horses and lots of kids, and, hasn't my mother ever been in love? I hate my mom. My mother told me there'll be lots of other boys. How can she say that? How does she know? If my dad gets this new job, we'll have to move away. Not far, but far enough. I won't see anyone again. I'm feeling miserable already. Well, at least I won't see people unless I make a special effort to go see them, but I don't think my parents will do that. One good thing about moving away is that we'll get a dog. My mom kind of promised. I have the scary feeling. I'm so used to this house, and I know everyone and everything. And although I'm scared, I'm willing to try. Of course, it's going to be hard to leave Paul behind since he's the boy I love, but I'll never forget him. If we're meant to be, he'll find me. My mother keeps telling me that there'll be other boys, but I don't know. Problem is, I need someone to love me. Staring at Paul in class isn't good enough for me anymore. Besides, he's getting shorter. I don't think I like that. If my father gets the job, he'll get more money and people will look up to him. I think my parents will fight less because, he'll feel better about himself. Even grown-ups need to feel good about themselves, otherwise they get cranky. And that's the truth. Today I was in my room dancing. It felt great. My mom came in the room, though. I thought she would get mad at me because my room was a mess, but instead, she came in and started dancing with me. She even took one of those long-stemmed roses and put it in between her teeth, like in the movies when the woman's dancing the tango. She actually knows how to dance. I couldn't believe it. We danced like crazy, then she collapsed onto my bed and pulled me down with her, and we hugged. She looked happier than I've seen her in a while. She told me that she used to dance in her bedroom when she was a kid. I was so happy today, and I hope we dance together soon. I rub my locket all the time in school when I'm nervous and taking tests. I'm still trying to decide what to put on the other side of my locket. Not my brother. That's dumb. I thought about putting Paul's picture in it, but, as I told you, he's much shorter now. I got taller and he didn't. I can look right over him. That's just one thing that's bugging me about our relationship. The other thing is that we don't have a relationship. He doesn't even look at me in school, and when we move, I'll never see him again. But tonight I'm going to the movies with Angela, and tomorrow she goes to camp, so. Today I went to the state fair, and I went up in a plane by myself. Well, the pilot was there too, but I was scared because, there wasn't even a roof on the plane, and I was sitting there behind the pilot. He was really, really handsome. I almost felt the same way about him as I felt about Paul. My heart was pounding, and I liked when he turned to me because I could watch his lips, but I got scared when the plane went really high. The pilot said I could hold his hand if I got scared, so I did. And it felt so reassuring, and I felt so much like Nancy Drew, and I wondered if he thought I was older than I am, maybe 16. My parents down below looked like tiny ants. They were waving and blowing kisses, and my mom looked like she was gonna cry, but when I came down to earth again, it was one of those special moments. My mom and dad and I were all so happy together, and they were happy I was alive and hadn't crashed, and I was happy I had gotten to hold the pilot's hand. It was a perfect day, and And that's the truth. Angela's back from camp. I missed her so much. She just called me and told me all these secrets. She got her period at camp, and she met a boy she really likes, and they kissed a lot of times, and I can't stand it. I did nothing, and Paul probably got even shorter. I wonder what it feels like to be kissed. Angela told me that I need to get a bra and start shaving my legs. She said, get a training bra. What is there to train, you know? Anyway, she'll tell me more on Friday when I have a sleepover with her. I can't wait. Angela came over today, and we had so much fun laughing hysterically, and she showed me the letter that Carl from camp wrote her. It was so romantic. He sounded so grown up. He kept saying how much he wanted to kiss her, and I can't say the rest. She says that she thinks she loves him, and it made me kind of sad when she asked me about Paul, because I haven't even seen him since school ended. Even when we danced at the school dance, I couldn't even talk to him because I was so much taller than him, so I'm fed up, but I still felt a tingling being that near to him, but I don't think I'll put his picture in my locket anymore. Maybe my mother's right. Maybe there will be other boys before I get married. I mean, Andrew's cute. He has long eyelashes and he's tall. Angela showed me her legs and I felt them, and they're so smooth. I guess I have to start shaving my legs. Maybe Sunday. Angela's already getting so big that she needs the next bra size. She's almost a real A cup. I'm growing up, and that scares me a lot. Pretty soon I'll wear an A cup just like Angela, and we're definitely moving soon. And my mother's having another baby. She just told me yesterday. She told me I'll be great help, but I don't really want to help. I have so much on my mind. New school, a new house, and new friends, and, I hope a dog. I'll have a baby crying all night. I don't really want to help out. This is not fair. I've been in love before, but now I'm not even sure about that. Paul never loved me back, and after a while I just sort of started giving up. I don't really think that I want to go through all that love stuff again. Angela told me everything about growing up when she slept over on Friday. Well, I mean, at least everything that she learned about from her mother. We got into our pajamas, and under the covers, we had to whisper and keep the lights off so my mother would think we were asleep. We kept giggling, and some things I knew and some things I didn't. I felt okay about most of the stuff, but I just felt a little sad that I had to hear it from Angela instead of my mother. Angela and all the girls are giving me a party today because I'm moving. They brought me gifts. Beth's mom made macaroni and tuna casserole, peas, and homemade apple pie. And then we had peanut butter cups. I love peanut butter cups. I'll never forget today. My mother said that she'll bring me back here, but, And Angela's mother said I could sleep over, but I wonder if I'll ever really see any of those girls again after I move. When we move, I'll be busy with new school and new friends, and there's so much to look forward to, but I'm not as scared of growing up as I used to be. I don't know why exactly. I wasn't even upset when I lifted my arms this morning and saw too many hairs to even bother to count. And I have cramps now and again, so I guess it's coming, but I feel a little rush of excitement. Different than falling in love with Paul. More like something I don't really understand, but it feels good. I'm glad I didn't put Paul's picture in my locket. I'm glad I didn't put my brother's picture in my locket either. Oh my god, so the movers are coming in 20 minutes, and I finally decided what I want to put in my locket. Inside of it, I put in a slip of paper that has all the things that I never want to forget. I wrote it in code, but I'll know how to break the code because I'm smart like Nancy Drew. My secret reminder is more important to me than some picture of Paul. I'll never forget him, of course, but the secret inside my locket will stay with me forever. I'll wear my locket next to my heart, and the words will face my face when the locket's shut. So I'll always remember the truth. Dad, I hear you! I'm coming! Bye.
And since that time, for the last 6 years or so, I've made a number of selfie films. Most of them definitely handle coming-of-age issues, but not entirely. Because of the world we live in and how crazy and frantic it can be, we had to branch out also. There is a film about shootings in schools because that's what's happening to kids.
So, where are you getting your hair cut and colored these days?
Salon L, downtown.
How much do they charge?
I don't know, my mom paid.
Okay, Miss Privilege. Oh, this color looks so good
How was
on
that
me.
chemistry test for you?
It was okay. Just like geometry's so hard.
Yeah, it's the worst. Did you hear that? Was that gunshots?
I don't know.
This is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedures. I repeat, this is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedure. This is not a test.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Quiet, quiet, you have to listen.
We're gonna die. We're gonna die. No, we're gonna die.
Get in there.
Oh my god, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Oh my god. Oh my god. How is this happening?
It'll be okay as long as we keep quiet.
No, I can't. It's okay.
Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear. This is Secretary Higgins. Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear.
Thank God.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
We're still alive.
Yeah.
That was insane.
I hope Brian's okay. Oh my god.
Thank you.